Federal Reserve data says 37% of adults wouldn't cover a $400 surprise expense with cash or its equivalent. But the part that matters isn't the number, it's the wiring underneath it. Because your brain treats next month like a different person. If you've ever opened your bank app after payday and thought, "That's me," you've felt it. So why does $400 feel impossible even when the math seems simple? In a minute, you'll see the two mechanisms quietly doing the damage: present bias and mental accounting, and why modern money systems are built to press on those exact weaknesses. Let's break down what's really happening, scene by scene. Picture Maya, a nurse, getting paid on Friday and feeling that fast, clean relief in her chest. By Sunday night, she's done nothing crazy, yet her balance looks like it skipped a week. She scrolls her transactions and sees the same pattern. Small charges, familiar logos, nothing that screams emergency. Then her car makes a sound that costs $412 to diagnose, and suddenly the week feels fragile. Now picture Jordan, commission-based, whose income swings, so he locks in his bills the second money hits. Rent, minimums, streaming, gym, phone plan, his paycheck is mentally spent before it's even real. And Luis, gig worker, watches a 0% for 4 payments button turn a $180 want into basically nothing. These aren't discipline stories, they're design stories, and it gets worse once you see the loop. Start with the simplest truth. Immediate spending feels more real than future emergencies. Not morally real, neurologically real. Researchers have shown our brains can value now with a different system than later, like two internal negotiators who don't share notes. That mismatch is why you can sincerely plan to save, then sincerely change your mind when the moment arrives. In behavioral economics, this is present bias. The present gets extra weight, the future gets discounted. It's why "I'll start next paycheck" feels painless, while "not today" feels like a loss. Even a small purchase can feel urgent when it's framed as comfort, relief, or identity. And the brain is exceptionally responsive to relief. Because relief is immediate, and immediacy is the lever. Hold on to that thought, because it connects directly to the $400 statistic. The Fed's survey doesn't say people don't believe emergencies happen. It shows that when the surprise arrives, a huge slice of people can't cover it with cash or equivalent in one clean motion. The second mechanism is sneakier: mental accounting, how the brain labels money into separate buckets that don't feel interchangeable. Richard Thaler described how we code money by category, not by total, like a set of invisible envelopes. So rent money can exist mentally even when rent hasn't been paid yet, and fund money can feel spendable even when the emergency fund is effectively zero. This is where it clicks. The account balance is one number, but the mind experiences it as many. Maya doesn't feel like she has $1,240, she feels like she has already committed money, plus a little breathing room. Jordan doesn't feel like he's saving, he feels like he's preventing future pain by pre-assigning every dollar. Luis doesn't feel like he's buying, he feels like he's borrowing tiny amounts from multiple future selves. And because each bucket has a story, the story often wins over the spreadsheet. Here's where it gets interesting. Modern payments turn those mental buckets into automatic behavior. Autopay is convenience, but it also hides the moment of choice. No choice moment means no psychological friction. And without friction, present bias doesn't get challenged. It gets rewarded. That's why subscriptions are so powerful. The pain is silent, the benefit is constant. A $12.99 charge feels invisible, but 12 invisible charges stop being invisible in aggregate. The Fed's own data visualization around unexpected expenses keeps this theme clear. Many adults aren't covering a $400 hit purely with cash-like resources. And a separate saint, Lewis Fed Explainer summarizes the same split. 63% say they could cover $400 with cash/savings or quick pay credit. 37% say they'd borrow, sell, or simply couldn't. Notice what that means psychologically. The margin for error is thin, even for people who look fine on paper. Because the issue isn't a single purchase, it's the system of micro-commitments. But here's what changes everything. The $400 problem often starts weeks earlier when nothing feels urgent. Think about payday as a psychological event, not just a deposit. Payday creates a brief illusion of abundance, even if the math says it's already spoken for. Mental accounting kicks in immediately. Rent bucket, bills bucket, minimum payments bucket, groceries bucket. Before the money fully lands emotionally, it's already been assigned a job. So when a treat-yourself moment appears, it doesn't compete against the emergency fund. It competes against the sliver labeled available, which feels harmless to spend. This is why two people with the same income can experience totally different financial stress. One person's available bucket is protected by friction. Another person's is constantly being drained by convenience. And the drain doesn't feel like failure. It feels like normal life. Open loop. In a minute, you'll see why trying to budget harder can actually backfire for this exact brain wiring. First, zoom in on the moment that creates the drop, when the future is forced to become the present. A tire blows, a dentist says, today, the landlord emails, late fee starts tomorrow. Now the emergency is no longer hypothetical, so present bias flips sides. Suddenly the brain overweights the emergency, and everything else becomes negotiable pain. That's when people reach for the fastest bridge. Credit, borrowing, selling, delaying another bill. It's not because they're unaware, it's because the brain is switching cost systems under stress. The most frustrating part is that the switch feels like it came out of nowhere. But it didn't. It was built, transaction by transaction, in quiet weeks. Pattern interrupt. Say the sentence most people never say out loud. My money isn't disappearing, it's being pre-sold. Pre-sold to comfort, convenience, and commitments that felt small at the time. Now revisit the headline statistic with clearer eyes. When people say, I can't afford a $400 emergency, they may mean I can't afford it without breaking my future promises. And those promises are often mental contracts, not written ones, yet they feel just as binding. This is why a raise doesn't automatically fix the pattern. Lifestyle inflation isn't only lifestyle, it's bucket inflation. More categories, more autopays, more already spent. So the emergency fund loses not to one big enemy, but to a crowd of small friendly ones. Open loop payoff. This is also why rigid, hyper-detailed budgets can collapse. Too many buckets create too many exceptions. Every exception becomes a story, and stories are how present bias gets permission. What most people miss is that financial stability is often about reducing decisions, not winning every decision. Because decision fatigue doesn't look like quitting, it looks like a $24 purchase you don't even remember making. And that's why the system feels personal even when it's predictable. If you've been living this loop, the most accurate label isn't bad with money, it's human in a high-friction world that was replaced with one-click everything. Call back to the hook. The $400 statistic is a mirror showing how often the present wins before the emergency even arrives. Drop a comment if you've noticed your own version of this. Payday relief, then the quiet drain, then the surprise. I break down financial psychology like this every Friday. If this clicked for you, there's more where this came from. Next time, I'm diving into why more income can increase stress and the one bias that makes it happen.